Good morning, students. This is going to be my short little presentation on how to interpret all the data from the coronavirus in terms of what that means for what you need to do, my recommendations, how to stay calm. And at the end, I'll do just like a quick little life update. So you can skip to the end if that's all you want, or you can just leave early. So before I go into it, I'm assuming that you are up to date on the information put out by the Center for Disease Control, CDC, and you're familiar with flatten the curve, what that means. If you don't know, stop the video, go to the links, and just read through those two things really quickly. So this is assuming that you know that the coronavirus is at risk, especially for certain populations, that you understand why we are staying home, and now you're trying to figure out, okay, what does that mean for my family? How do I stay calm in the situation, etc. Okay, so let's go to the 5 stages of, the fact that we are in a public health crisis situation, and also what that means for us as we've experienced like a lot of loss. Some people, the reason that I've been able to stay calm is that I moved through these stages much quicker than a lot of other people. I'm on the acceptance stage. I don't have any friends that are in denial right now. They are in the maybe anger through depression, something. Yeah, so somewhere in there. So just like figure out where you are right now, and not only where you are, but what the next stage is for you to move. For me, I'm in acceptance. I know what's happening. I know what we need to do, and I know we need to act fast. So I have been prepared for an 8-week closure since March 14th. So the last time I saw many of you guys was Thursday. On Wednesday, I really wanted to tell my AP kids, like, everybody have a textbook at home. Everybody just have a textbook at home. Because I thought that we might be gone for a week that Wednesday. I thought we might not return for spring break. But by the time we got to Saturday, I was like, oh no, it's not going to be a week. And by the time we got to Sunday, and CDC put out it was an 8-week closure, and this was before Dallas ISD even announced closure, I knew that it was possible. The problem is Dallas ISD did not communicate anything with us until they notified everybody at the same time. But in the end, all school districts got to the same point. We're all going to be closed. And Dallas ISD has not announced an 8-week closure, but I am prepared for an 8-week closure. Do you guys know the difference? You guys see that difference? Because I didn't know what would happen, I was preparing for every type of scenario. And so that's why whenever something did happen, whenever someone up top made a decision, I was already ahead of the game. So how do you predict the future? The reason I was able to kind of mentally make that leap was I saw what was happening in California, and then I saw what was happening in DC. And if you want to predict what's going to happen in Texas in terms of restrictions, watch what DC does. Maryland and DC, as of today, March 31st, they are now in mandatory stay-at-home order, which means if you leave your house, you could be fined. And that is a good thing. You can go to your government class and discuss about infringement of personal rights, but it is necessary to stop the virus because this is what worked in Wuhan, China, for them to do the lockdown. And that's my bad, because when this started, I wasn't really looking at what Wuhan did to flatten the curve. And what they did was a 2-month stay at home, mandatory, and it worked. So if you want to predict the future, just look at what DC does. So what does that mean for Texas? Today is 3/31. I predict by the end of the week, stay at home will be mandatory. I know we're in a Republican state, but that shouldn't matter because it is something that we all are already doing. It's just making the consequences a little more serious. So mandatory stay at home shouldn't really make a difference to your life. You should already be kind of ahead of that game. Now, in terms of scenarios where the US is going, the best case scenario is South Korea, which you've already heard of, when they did complete stay at home and they're tracking the pandemic. And I'll drop a link about how South Korea was able to trace every single one of their patient zeros. Like, they know patient 1 to 31, where they went, who they infected. It's amazing. Using this information, they're able to contain it. Worst case scenario was, as you know, Italy, because they have gone over the amount of beds. For us, I think our likely scenario is China. While China's cases were initially high, they responded because they are a very powerful economic country, powerhouse. They built hospitals really quickly, and they were able to respond and contain it. I think the US is going to be a China situation where we respond by getting the resources that we need, because we have so much financial power in the US to be able to respond, and we will be able to contain the virus after, you know, over the course of the 8 weeks, and taking into account how long the virus takes to incubate, which we'll talk about later. Okay, so when I got into my mind, it's an 8-week closure, I really wanted to text everybody, like, get ready. But it was your spring break. It's just, I just hate the timing of this, but it's okay. So, and also, I just wanted to leave that to your families to make a decision. This to you. So, on the left, let's go here. For food, I did buy enough food for 2 weeks. This was back like 2 weeks ago, and I prioritized things that I wanted, because the necessities, there's always going to be food. We're not going to run out of food. Even in the worst case scenario, in Italy, they still have their supply chain going. But will what you want still be available? Will toilet, don't even get me started on toilet paper. But let's say there's a certain ice cream or a mangoes or something, like those stocks might be limited. The other thing about food is we know that milk, eggs, and meat are so popular, but look at the frozen vegetable section. Those sections are still full. As long as the frozen vegetable sections are still full, we're good. So for my food, I have my staples. I could eat chili forever. It's super cheap. It makes, like, I don't know, it costs 25 cents per serving that I make. I have rice and beans and frozen meat, and I am buying produce through an online outdoor market / also a giveaway that I get every week. For water, I did not stock up on water bottles because I don't drink water bottles. The tap water in Dallas is fine. There is no risk of the tap water going away because the treatment center is completely stocked up, and it's automatically run, and the people working it are essential, and they're like, you're fine. Like, water, you're good. Oh, one day we're gonna actually talk about water bottles and how they're such a scam later on, but that's okay. For those of you who drink your core water and your boss water, from time to time, I do drink a water bottle. I was more scared of boredom. So what I did on Saturday is I was going to text everybody on Saturday. I was like, hey, you better go to the library, check out some books, either for you or for your younger siblings. But then the library closed on Saturday, Dallas Library. And just like, oh my God. They closed right when spring break started, which is horrible because a lot of people go to the library during spring break. So I went to Grand Prairie, got all these books, got some workout videos because I knew that the gyms would be closing soon, and that's what I did. So checking out books may not be for you. For some of you guys get bored reading books, so that's not advice, but like replace that with whatever you want now. Like if there's a video game, I don't even know if that's considered essential anymore, but you could probably get something out Walmart. yeah, but if there's anything that you really like want, I would go ahead and get those items now. Next, I got on the same page as my husband. I was more of the prepper than he was. He's a little more like, we can just get the groceries when we want. But when he went and he saw everything empty, he was like, oh, you kind of right. Okay. I'm glad I married you. That's what he said. And I've been checking in with my family members. We have a lot of my husband's family in the area. His parents are very old. They're good. They have like rice and beans for months. So they're going to be fine. And my sister, she's 12. She FaceTimes me every other day from California, and she's good. She's just living her best Netflix watching Korean drama life. And lastly, I self-isolated. So what I'm going to continue to do is I will purchase groceries every 2 weeks. Some people are even every 2 weeks, eating through my pantry. And also Oak Cliff Veggie Project is where I'm getting my produce right now. What they do is they give away produce that is ripe, and stores donate the produce that may not look perfect, but they're still like really good on the inside. Just because something has a spot on the skin, you just cut it off, it's perfect. So that's where I've been getting a lot of my produce, getting groceries, sanitizing them in a way that's not like panicky, but in a smart way. I'll drop the link below and continue self-isolating. Okay, so keeping your mind calm. I really regret, you know how everyone is referring to those Worldometer site now? We use that site in class, but I would encourage you to no longer look at that site because those statistics are not relevant. The only people who really need to be looking at statistics are people who are in charge of building hospitals, doing emergency response, and even them, they have statistics that you don't see. They're focused on predicting all the possible outcomes. So yes, it's an exponential growth curve. It will continue growing because they are going up from infections that happened 2 weeks ago, and we're just seeing the symptoms from those people before the whole country shut down. Also, infections happen in clusters. So the fact that there are like 2,000 people or however many people in New York infected does not affect me at all because I am self-isolated. And when I do go out, I am practicing proper protection and hygiene. So it doesn't, I know that sounds callous. I'm doing what I can to be sympathetic and help the situation, but that doesn't affect me. It's not like a hurricane that's going to hit our entire city. It's not a hurricane that you can't hide from. It's like a smog outside, or that you can stay inside and be protected from, or if you do go outside, practice proper protection from, and it's a smog that comes from other people. So just the big thing is staying distant away from other people and careful about touching surfaces. So you reduce your risk by things that are in your control. So right now, what we're seeing in the US is we are seeing exponential growth because there was very little intervention in February, and we just started. And it's going to continue growing because of the cases, people who were infected before the infection. But this is what happened in South Korea and in China. Because of intervention, it did slow down. And the outbreak, the number of people who are having severe symptoms are treatable by the hospitals. So I really want you guys to focus on what is in your control. That is the number one tactic to stay calm, and is what can I do to protect myself and the people that I care about. Self-isolation is the best way. And lastly, how can you be prepared for any outcome? Physically, what are the necessities that I need, and maybe the wants to help keep my mind entertained, my body strong. Financially, right now, what all the steps we can to protect our family financially, depending on your situation. Right now, ironically, some people have immense job security because they're working essential jobs. Some people do not. And lastly, medically, if there was going to be a situation where I did get sick and I need to be, isolated in a bed just to rest and recover from the virus, just like it was a flu, what do I need? Or if we did need to go to the hospital, what hospital would we go to? Who would take them? What does that mean? So, because it is not a curable disease with medicine, but it's treatable with medicine, and it's treatable with hospital equipment if it gets that severe, and people recover all the time. Okay. All right, so next I'm going to go into some clinical information just so you can understand a little bit. So as you know, incubation, it might be 20 days before symptoms onset. I still stand by this. Before spring break, I doubt that we had community spread in Kimball because Oak Cliff is very insular. A lot of us stay within the same 5-10 miles. A lot of us are self-isolated naturally, like you go to school, and then you go to home. The people who are most at risk are the people who are working. And so at this point, if you are still working, and my husband's still working, he's considered essential, you should be practicing proper protection. So diffusion, airborne droplets if someone coughs or sneezes, not really if someone breathes on you, and it does survive on surfaces. Let me look through this. You can see all the symptoms. And this infection age distribution is actually, I think it's skewed because you can see in the younger ages, only 1% of these ages are infected. That's not true. That can't be true. There should be an equal amount of infections. But what we're seeing is in the lower ages, they're not showing symptoms, so we don't know they're infected. Does this make sense? Okay. Okay, so what will happen over the course of the disease? What we know so far is that if you start to show symptoms, within 14 days you recover. And this is the vast majority of people. What happens when your symptoms worsen is that it could turn into pneumonia, which we talked about in class, where the liquid starts to fill up your lungs. Pneumonia is very serious because that's what's causing the shortness of breath. So you go to the ICU and they treat your pneumonia. If needed, they intubate you to help give you air and you recover. And this second thing can happen as long as we have different ventilators and depending on your body, if it can handle battling the virus. The last thing, of course, has happened to people depending, and we're trying to still figure out the risks. They have correlation, as you know, what puts you at risk. But pneumonia, it's not unique to the virus. Pneumonia has always been a risk with any type of respiratory infection. So just pneumonia is really the thing that's most harmful about the virus. But the good thing is we know how to treat pneumonia in a way that it has a successful recovery rate on average. Okay. Okay, so this is really long. I'm really sorry. So the advice that I have for you is prepare for different outcomes. And once you're prepared, that's it. You can let it go. And when things happen, you can then execute the plan that you have. Let's go to number 3. For the news, I recommend, I already told you what's going to happen. Restrictions are going to get stronger. It's going to continue growing. But after 2 weeks, we're going to see, what's happening in the different areas. Like we should see New York start to slow down. We should see California start to slow down. Texas might continue ramping up because we put in our restrictions later. And our virus started spreading later than New York. But eventually it will slow down because it's impossible for the virus to not slow down at this point because we have so little movement. It can continue growing, but it's not going to grow like it would without intervention. It will slow down. So I would focus on the news in your community in Texas and maybe checking it every 5 days. Don't worry about the world. The world don't matter. And then also just checking Dallas ISD Facebook page, because they are the ones who are going to be constantly putting up resources, mental health resources, food resources, Wi-Fi resources, economic resources in order to help you navigate the crisis. For those who are privileged enough to be able to be at home and we do have enough food and we do have enough resources and you're financially stable, you will have the privilege to consider this as a pause. And it's not a stop, it's a pause. And I want you to consider, what are you going to do in this pause? Life will return afterwards. How are you going to make use of it? And what are you going to be looking forward to when this is, life kind of returns back to normal? Because it will, in a way. Even in like 9/11, with the crisis that country went through and it was gripped by fear, even life went eventually back to normal. After SARS pandemic in 2002, life went back to normal. We still had a lot of scars, and this is not applicable for some people because it might, I pray that you guys stay safe. But for many people, it will not end up affecting them that seriously, and that's just the reality. So just reminding you here, this is the goal. You can see how South Korea did have that peak, but boom, when they put in their interventions here, we saw the effects here. And now they're at a manageable case. And these cases are nothing to be alarmed of because most of those people have mild to no symptoms. It's really just the few at the bottom that are super critical, and they should be hospitalized where the hospital can treat them. So that is the goal. Last thing, I want you guys to focus on, always just focus on what's in your control. There's a lot of decisions that are out of your control, but you can always focus on what your life will be like after this time and how you can prepare, react, and utilize this time to your benefit and for your safety. So for coping skills, a lot of people have maybe struggling with the anxiety, stress, or overload. I will say I have not really experienced a lot of anxiety around this topic, but that is because I've been coping with it really well, and I am financially secure. We are so lucky that we paid off a lot of debt right before this happened. If I lost my job, that would be very difficult. I will have to admit that. So, I maybe just like I gotta be looking for those jobs. But focusing on, I focused on what I could do to prepare. I helped cope with the idea of the unknown by looking at what was known, looking at Italy, what was worst case scenario, looking at what South Korea did, seeing what needed to be done, and also looking at California, Maryland to see what was going to happen in Texas. And to help you deal with stress and anxiety, there's a couple of coping skills that you can use. I'm not a big into the calming coping skills. That's not my thing. My thing is all about distraction. So I've thrown myself into work every Saturday. I might not do it anymore, but I volunteer. And I like to go for drives. I don't leave my car, but it's very calming for me to just go for a drive. And I've done that even since I was in high school. When I got in a fight with my parents, I would just go for a drive and I would come back like so calm. And taking walks. I try to take more walks. Even in the local park, there's still social distancing. I know that's kind of iffy. Hopefully they don't take that away from us. I also have done some social coping skills, serving people and using humor. Giving people memes are a way to kind of relieve stress. And I think, especially around online teaching, that's really helped me. And for processing, the only thing I did here that's been really helpful is wrote a list of goals, because that's something that I have control over, and also just identifying what I can control, what's out of my control, and brainstorming solutions. So I'm going to drop the link to this list below, but I encourage you guys to do it. Okay. So personal life update real quick. So I'm fine. My husband is essential, and I have been prepared for what's about to come. I'm working really hard getting the hang of this online learning thing. It is so hard. It's really different, but I'm excited because it gives me more opportunity to give like individual feedback. And I did an online master's, so I'm trying to remember what I liked and didn't like about that online program and apply it to the class. So yeah, that's it. I am volunteering every Saturday, but I might not be doing it anymore. But I might just financially support them. Oak Cliff Veggie Project is just kind of like my church. I usually go to church on Saturdays, but what I do now is I volunteer on Saturdays, and then on Sunday I'll watch like a recording of something, and that's actually been really good. For me, as a religious person, I was just like, I don't want to sit around and listen to a sermon. Like, I want to go do something and make a difference right now. But I found the balance of both worlds, doing something, but also after that, getting some like spiritual food to help put things in perspective. And when things get to that point, if everything's do get out of my control, and I have a higher prior to like rely on. So that's what I'm doing. And I even tried something yesterday. My friend hosted like virtual trivia night, and that was fun. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I know that there are a lot of things happening right now, but I know we're waiting on like senior information, and that's one reason like I'm very motivated to do online learning well and doing this transition, because for seniors, I feel like this is, for y'all, it counts the most out of all the grades. And there is nothing that can't be postponed. Nothing. That's honest to God. I believe that. And while we're on pause, when we return, we can make things happen. So I encourage you to see what other schools around the country are doing. At the college level, they're being a little bit more proactive, like TCU just postponed their graduation to August or September, and other things can be postponed, like weddings. I just recently had a wedding, so I'm in a group where all the brides, thousands of people, cancel their wedding and just postpone, make it work. So I hope that gives you a little bit of comfort in this time. And it's just some advice, or if you already are ahead of the game, you can share this with somebody else. And then also you can give me advice. If there's something that's been working for you, let me know. So thanks, and stay safe.